Our time must be our own. It should not be sold to someone else. This only impoverishes us. Now, Marx says, look at capitalism. Workers are forced to work at tasks they haven't chosen. There's no meaningful connection to their work. They have no control over the products they make. The owners sell them. And they have to sell their time to the owners. The working class in the capitalist epoch is alienated. I will explain that in just a minute. And Marx's famous word for the working class under capitalism is proletariat. So if I speak of the proletariat, this would be the working class, the lower class. Marx says they're being made miserable. Also, capitalism depends for its success on selling products for more than they cost to produce. If you manufactured automobiles and it cost you $10,000 to make and produce an automobile, you have to sell it for more than it costs, or else you're losing money and you're going out of business. And Marx says the main cost for the owners, for the bourgeoisie, is labor. It's what they have to pay their workers. So the bourgeoisie, and now this is his word for the upper class, for the owners in this economic theory here. So the bourgeoisie keeps workers on subsistence wages. And that means just enough to subsist on. They pay them just enough to keep them alive. Now Marx does credit the capitalist epoch with creating something new. And that's going to be the explosion of science and technology. And the result is the growth of production is incredible. This is something human beings have never seen before. This makes it possible, Marx says, for the first time in human history, to solve the problem of scarcity. Enough products can now be made for every human being to have his or her material needs satisfied. Food, clothing, shelter, transportation, all of this can be dispersed so that every human being would have these new needs met. But, Marx says, the problem of scarcity was not solved, because the capitalists don't know how to solve the problem of distribution. I have here the problem of distribution. The majority of the population lacks resources to buy these things. So all of these things can now be produced because of the advances in science and technology. But the majority of people can't buy them. This is the unfairness of capitalism to Marx. Workers create products to satisfy human needs, but they can't have these products, but only a meager share of it. Marx correctly saw the miserable condition of the working class in Europe in the 19th century. And he says this misery is a necessary condition of capitalism, and he offers a solution. Capitalism, Marx says, has become a blocking force, blocking the economic growth for all. That means social upheaval is inevitable, and what he's going to call a communist revolution is inevitable. We'll talk about it in a little bit, what he means by communism. And this revolution will necessarily be violent. The bourgeoisie will not relinquish power voluntarily. Their view of the situation is distorted. Because they benefit from this situation, they cannot clearly see the problem. Even though Marx claims communism is inevitable, and again, I'll talk about what that is in a few minutes, Its appearance can be hastened, and philosophical guidance is necessary here. The proletariat must lead the revolution, the working class. But they don't understand the situation yet. They are controlled and oppressed by the bourgeoisie. Religion is a major instrument of control. The poor, the proletariat are told and taught that the meek will inherit the earth, that the poor, the downtrodden, will be rewarded in the next world for suffering and patience in this one. And this is why Marx famously said, and I have it in quotation marks here, this is what Marx said. He said, religion is the opiate of the masses. It is a type of drug that they are given to make them feel better about their situation. So the proletariat, Marx says, must be educated in what he called class consciousness. Workers must be taught to recognize that they have been exploited and manipulated. They must be taught to recognize that those whom they work for have not been acting in their interests. Bourgeoisie is interested in preserving a system that benefits them. So class consciousness is a necessary first stage in transforming society. Now, this will get a little controversial. Marx claimed that the revolution against capitalism will necessarily be violent. And the bourgeoisie, we're down here, the bourgeoisie, he says, must be re-educated or eliminated. And I think you can understand what he meant by eliminated. This sacrifice, this would involve taking the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of human beings. But Marx claims that this sacrifice is justified because of the enormous benefits to future humanity.